Good evening, everyone. It is 6:30, and we're ready to begin our special board meeting. I call this meeting to order. Roll call, Ms. Rhonda.
Dr. Redis.
Here.
Mrs. McLean.
Here.
Mrs. Blanca.
Here.
Mr. Taylor.
Here.
Mrs. Temple.
Here.
Mrs. Williams. Ms. Carson West.
Thank you. The first item on our agenda is public comments. Citizens who desire to speak during the meeting. Further, citizens will have no more than 3 minutes to speak, and per Arkansas Code 6-13-619 will not be allowed to make comments that shall prejudice the board of directors concerning student or personnel matters that could come before the board for disciplinary or employment consideration, or that is in conflict with other district policy or law. I have the list, and just to be mindful of time, it's probably going to take us about 45 minutes to get through everybody, as long as you stick to your 3 minutes. So when the buzzer buzzes, I'll have to cut you off. The first person is Hunter Nannon.
Well, long time no see. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Hunter Nannon. I was the head of IT here about a year ago, and I worked for the district for about 5 years. Know there's a lot of people doing public comment today, so I'll try and keep mine short and sweet as best I can. In my time here, over the 5 years, when I first started, we had about 10,000 kids in this district, and we saw grades failing, and we tried to improve that. By the time I left, we were down to just under 8,000, and the grades continued to stagnate. Through that time, I was on the executive team here in the boardroom about every other Tuesday, working with Dr. Paluski and the other executives, trying to come up with plans to make things better. We had different reorganizations. Every plan you can think of, I felt like at the time, come through to try and make everything better. But sometimes the plans don't work out. Sometimes you have to readjust. Sometimes you have to figure something different. Unfortunately, the district's at the point where fiscally you're getting forced to do it too. And at that time, through those organizations, a lot of the administrators that were brought into this district were done so through those organizations through temporary funds. That has unfortunately brought us to the crossroads that you sit today, where a tough decision has to be made. But the decision, I think, should be based on what we talked about in exec team every single day, and is probably burned into my memory forever, which is you put the kids first. Everything you think about and you do, every decision is putting the kids first. This item that's going to be presented today may result in, well, it's going to result in people losing their jobs from all walks of life, all different colors of skin, and unfortunately in some areas and aspects in the typical world that we live in today, it's being made political. Items are being made about race, when inherently I don't believe, in my opinion, that this plan's based off race, especially not to all the individuals that reached out to me who are directly affected by this plan and asked me to speak today. It is the unfortunate truth that that's where we're at. And if the plan doesn't proceed today, instead of some of the highest level paid administrators in this district losing their jobs, it's going to result in teachers and support staff losing their jobs. The ones who make the direct impact on a student's lives and can decide whether that child will grow up in poverty for the rest of their life, possibly end up in jail, or they're going to be our next lawyers, our doctors. So I say, board, will you back the claims and the ideology of today and listen to all the rhetoric that's coming out that makes this a hate-filled argument, or will you choose the kids?
Thank you. Ms. Sharon Hagbard.
That's a tough act to follow. Okay, good evening, board members and Dr. Paluski. As most of you know, my name is Sharon Hagbard. I have worked here in North Little Rock School District for 38 years, and my career is 43 years overall. During my time here in North Little Rock School District, I have worked for 8 different superintendents, including Dr. Paluski. During this time, I have experienced many different leadership styles, with each one that has come and gone. However, with all of these leaders, their number one goal was first and foremost the needs of our students and moving our district ahead. I have also experienced more than once the hard decision of the leaders to look at a reduction in force to meet the budget shortfalls. In my opinion, as a leader, deciding how to do this and knowing that there would be a need for an elimination of positions would be one of the hardest things that the leader has to do. However, this is what superintendents are hired to do: make all the hard decisions and move the district forward. The most recent one happened 3 years ago, and people's positions were eliminated, but each and every person was afforded the opportunity to reapply for any position that they were qualified for. Now, fast forward 3 years, and here we are looking at a situation where steep cuts must be made to work within the budget that we have been given. In order to do this, a reorganization must happen. And to accomplish this downsizing in staff is necessary. This decision was not made lightly and considered or with racial bias, but a necessity to effectively work within our budget. The elimination of positions has affected more than what was initially and inaccurately reported to the media. When this inaccuracy was reported, the plan had not even been presented to the board and did get tabled at that meeting. Tonight, I would ask that everyone look at the presented plan before judgment is passed on the accusation of racial bias and afford the board, the LPPC, and CPPC the opportunity to review this plan and determine what is best for the district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Leanne Stoll.
Madam President, members of the board, Dr. Poliski, I'm Dr. Leanne Stoll, a 30-year veteran of the North Little Rock School District and a proud administrator in the North Little Rock School District and a member of the North Little Rock community. I want to start tonight with a quote by J.K. Rawlings, which says, "We are only as strong as we are united, and as weak as we are divided." At our last board meeting on Thursday night, people came before you to make us divided. They made this about race. They said 7 black administrators were fired, which is inaccurate and incorrect information. I know this because I am one of the many administrators that are not black, that are a part of the reorganization plan. There are many school district employees that are affected by this plan, and it is not about race. It is about a $5.1 million deficit with an additional cuts that need to be made so that our teachers and staff can receive raises that they have not seen in years, so that our insurance and benefits do not have to be cut. A district-wide survey went out to everyone in this district, and overwhelmingly, people said that we are top-heavy in central office administrators. I have been in this district for a long time. I have seen many reduction in forces. And what happens usually is it's the classroom teachers who take the hit first. Our cohorts across the river last year, 121 teachers were given pink slips to make up for budget deficits. I stand before you today united with North Little Rock teachers and staff. Please make the appropriate decisions listen to the superintendent's reorganization plan. I am so excited to hear about it tonight and to see where my place is in this reorganization and to see where the other people's place is in the reorganization. And I encourage everyone whose jobs are affected to apply for positions you are qualified for. I want to leave you with one thing tonight, board. I want to say, with great power comes great responsibility. You have the power to make the necessary changes in the North Little Rock School District. You have the responsibility to make those decisions based on fact and factual information, not based on emotions, not based on racial tensions. We are one North Little Rock, and I support all of our teachers and staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have LaToya Morgan.
I want to begin by saying my name is LaToya Morgan, and I don't want anybody to take this as an offensive remark, but don't come in here and act like this is kumbaya. Because we know we are all well aware of what's going on in this country. So do not come in here and act like things are not happening across this country. And do not come in here and criticize people for their opinion. My name is LaToya Morgan, and I am reaching out as both a concerned citizen and an educator. As we gather here today, I want to emphasize the critical need for all of us in this room to be advocates for public education, not just during budget cuts, but throughout the entire year. As we speak, bills are being filed that propose cuts to public school funding, and it's often the case we are late to the conversation. Last week, I had the opportunity to have an informal conversation with your current chief of staff regarding his role and responsibilities. During our discussion, some additional questions came up, and I would appreciate further clarification. Specifically, I would like to know who is responsible for ensuring that academic progress is being made across the district and what supports are in place to guarantee the academic success of our students. My main concern is to ensure that both the emotional and academic needs of our students are being met consistently and effectively. Additionally, if some of these positions were created using COVID relief funds, I am interested in understanding the plan for reorganizing these positions in a way that supports long-term success, especially as we move beyond the pandemic. Public education is the foundation of our community, and it's imperative that we engage not only with board members, but lawmakers, parents, and other stakeholders throughout the year to ensure that our schools are fully supported. We cannot afford to wait until cuts are already on the table to take action. Transparency is crucial for fostering trust among students, parents, educators, and stakeholders across this district. I encourage you to be proactive in championing the needs of our students, educators, and community members, and to be consistently advocating for the resources necessary to maintain a high-quality education for all people. So whenever anyone comes up to this seat, they have a right to give their opinion and express their concerns. That is your right. And that does not need to be, I guess, in my opinion, seen as something negative when you are advocating for yourself. Thank you.
Next, we have, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Stephanie Carmichael. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I'm bad about names.
It was perfect. Good evening. I'm Stephanie Carmichael. I'm a speech-language pathologist for the district. I have worked here for 23 years. I've worked in many buildings around our district, but my home base has always been North Little Rock High School. Since 2002, I have developed a deep affection for the school, the community, the staff, but most of all, our students. And over these many years, I've worked alongside our teachers, and I've watched the additional expectations continue to grow exponentially. Last school year, I decided to become an LPPC representative for my building because I had become so concerned about the low morale in our school. Too many talented lifetime North Little Rock teachers were leaving. The ones that were staying behind were growing weary and frustrated, and we were seeing new teachers just completely leave education entirely. When Dr. St. Louis came, her energy was refreshing. There was a hopeful vibe within our school, and she's worked really hard to build a building-based support system for our staff that has improved morale, has improved situations for our teachers. But integral parts of that system involve our APs, assistant principals, our multi-classroom leaders, MCLs, and our parent engagement professionals. And I fear any reduction or reorganization that affects these roles by pulling them out of our building could be devastating to our school. I would like to see the MCLs and the PEPs remain building-based. My experience has shown me that building-based services create relationships and trust within buildings, and it creates a team atmosphere that directly supports teachers. And additionally, in regard to Bucket 2, I'd like to share with the board that the 450 minutes of teacher planning time that was discussed at the workshop on Saturday might be a little different than it appears on paper. Our teachers dedicate 2 preps per week to SLCs and PLCs. SLCs are academy-based meetings for their specific academy. PLCs are content area, like English department, math department. This structure is essential to maintain the academy structure. They're left with probably about 250 minutes of actual planning time that is their time to use independently. And of course, they're going to spend that time in IEP meetings, 504 conferences, things like that, meeting with special education staff. So I can't go on. I would use up my whole 3 minutes just listing the things they need to prep for. But I just want you to know that high school is a unique and challenging environment. We need staff that will put down roots to build our school community where everyone thrives. And I respectfully ask that you please don't eliminate procedures or positions that support our North Little Rock High School teachers. It's a tough time to be an educator in Arkansas, but North Little Rock can retain more teachers by continuing to provide adequate time and resources necessary to provide excellent instruction and meet the needs of every student. Thank you.
Right on time. Amen.
Sarah, you're up next, so you might as well just stay on up here.
Good evening. In 1997, I had the honor of witnessing the Truth and Reconciliation trials in Johannesburg, South Africa. In a dilapidated courtroom, I watched Desmond Tutu reunify a community who had harmed each other. Tutu instructed, name the hurt, tell the story, grant forgiveness. And they did that day after day, month after month, one wrong at a time. Through their collective pain, honesty, and accountability, much healing occurred. This was my first experience with restorative justice. The success of this process marveled me at 25 years old, and it continues to at 50. America's story, and more closely, Arkansas's story of racial divide, is real. It is ongoing, and it too is in need of restoration. I understand why emotions are high at this moment in our country and our state, and I deeply empathize. I don't recognize my Arkansas or my country much anymore. And I don't know the conflicts that have happened behind these administrative closed doors. I can only pray that every single one of us in this room continues to grow in our restorative efforts towards true reconciliation, both politically and economic integration. That's the only way that the great American democratic experiment will work. Within that context, I do believe that this reorganization is a direct response to these 4 truths. A $5.1 million deficit based on an enrollment decrease, the loss of free and reduced lunch status, and that 3 years ago, too many top-level positions were hired with temporary funds without including an expiration date on those contracts. And finally, the LPPC's relentless ask for a reduction in central office positions over the past 2 years so that we can find ways to give raises to all teachers and staff. That is my why. Raises for a staff that hasn't seen them in over 15 years. So I ask you tonight, board members, to be united in your response to move forward with this reorganization. We haven't seen it. We don't know if we're even going to like it. We're just asking you to let us analyze it for 10 days so that we can give feedback and work collaboratively as one district with many voices to move forward. Thank you for your attention.
Lanita Hughes.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Paluski. Douglas MacArthur once said that a true leader has the confidence to stand alone, the courage to make tough decisions, and the compassion to listen to the needs of others. He does not set out to be a leader, but becomes one by the equality of his actions and the integrity of his intent. I stand before you as a proud parent engagement professional for North Little Rock High School under the leadership of our great principal, Dr. St. Louis. I ask that as the board makes these decisions, that they take time to look at us as people, not a line budget item. While teachers are the glue that holds schools together, PEPs are the thumbtacks and masking tape that holds it all together. Whether we are putting together a special event such as Donuts with Dads, Thanksgiving meals with families, or making contact with a student's guardian to ensure their student comes to school, we are working. We are the boots on the ground. Some of the students we are tasked to work with are homeless, migrant families looking for a friendly face, or some that don't have family support. I'm even working with a senior right now that walks 40 minutes a night from work after she gets off at 10 p.m. because there's no bus for her to ride. She works because she's paying rent in her own apartment. They trust us to help them in a non-judgment manner. Lastly, I stand with the women at risk of losing their jobs, but more importantly, the African-American women. To be overlooked and pushed aside while holding top-tier education degrees is a slap in the face to the experience and education they possess and what they bring to this district. The city of North Little Rock demographics show that this city is 44% African American. An illusion of inclusion does not mean there is equity. In addition, optics of equity are not achieved by name changes and press releases. They are achieved by those who are valued, that are sitting at the table, and for those who can speak to the specific needs of minority children. Thank you, Dr. Nicholson, Crystal Barker, and especially Dr. Hooper for being supportive and always speaking up for our minority students. Board members, please take a look at your constituents that you serve and be mindful that you are their voice in the room for what is right and what is right for children.
Valerie Tatum.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Palusi. Thank you so much for being able to sit before you today. I am Valerie Tatum, a proud North Little Rock School District teacher. Here's a quick point of reference about me. First, I'm retired. I've returned to teaching after retirement and have been with the North Little Rock School District for 2 years. However, I started as a substitute teacher because I was hesitant about stepping back into the demands of teaching, so I wanted to do it with ease. I took a long-term substituting assignment at the middle school as a math teacher, and at the end of the assignment, I was encouraged by Assistant Principal Miller to consider staying on full-time as a teacher. Guess what? I gave it some thought, and I accepted the position. And I can honestly say that my first year was incredible. I can honestly say that my first year was incredible. I loved the building relationships with the teachers and the students. I taught to learn and love mathematics. After my first year, I wanted to do a much greater, much harder work. So I transitioned to the academy under the amazing leadership of Mr. Sandy Williams. where I continue to work with students and a staff that feels like family. But here's the issue. Since I've started, I have watched so many teachers leave this district in just 2 years. I've even had the privilege to poll some of the teachers that were transitioning out of the district. I asked the question, why are you leaving? Well, it wasn't necessarily student behavior. It was huge. It was a huge concern. But more importantly, teacher pay was the biggest reason. Note, those teachers were simply dedicated educators who expressed a desire to stay, but also expressed their need for salaries to be comparable to other school districts they drove by every single day getting to North Little Rock. In short, they wanted more financial stability. Now I'm at the academy. This is the time of teachers where they begin to share their next steps and their concerns. Many have shared they have earned advanced degrees or they have entered advanced programs to help them with opportunities of growth to advance their families. In short, I believe I've heard and I've witnessed every teacher saying they love teaching, but passion alone doesn't pay the bills. Tonight I stand and support the North Little Rock
Ms.
teachers.
Tatum, I'm sorry your time is up.
Remember, please remember, it's been 15 years. 15 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Christina Gully. Sorry, KG Gully.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Christina KG Gully, community leader here in North Little Rock, proud graduate of public schools. I want to thank each of you all for your time and service to the North Little Rock School District. I know this is a very hard time for you guys. Decisions are having to be made. But in all fairness, I really can't make a comment on what's happening because I don't know the plan. So until I see the plan for myself, and all this talk that's going on around the community and on the news, I have to see the plan before I can speak on it. So I will come back at a later date. That's if that's something that's concerning to me. I will come back and speak on it. But in all fairness, I'm here to see the plan for myself, so I'll know the facts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Collins.
you. Meredith Williams.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Paluski. My name is Meredith Williams, and I'm in my 28th year of service to this district. Throughout these years, I've poured my heart, soul, and countless hours into serving this district, its students, and its teachers, often at the expense of time with my own family. For 25 years, I was in the classroom, first as a SPED teacher, then as a social studies teacher, teaching all levels, including IB and AP students. 3 years ago, I decided to transition into the role of an MCL, driven by my deep passion for mentoring new teachers and supporting those who needed guidance and trying to retain our new teachers, our young ones, into the district. To be honest, when the MCL position was first introduced 7 years ago, many of my colleagues encouraged me to apply. I declined, believing that the role might eventually be eliminated, leaving me scrambling for a new position and a new job. 3 years ago, I finally took the leap of faith. Well, here I am. For the second year in a row, I received the call from HR, leaving me devastated. And I am highly marketable. I have a lot of experience. I am working on my 4th certification right now so that I can serve teachers who are anywhere from special ed to ESOL and everywhere in between. I could reapply to the district under one of these newly reorganized positions, once we understand what the plan entails, of course, because we haven't seen it. But after nearly 3 decades of dedication to this district, how many of you would feel valued and appreciated if you were simply told that you were welcome to reapply? Moreover, I believe there's little understanding of the full scope of what an MCL's work at the high school level entails. So let me shed a little bit of light on some of the things we do. We conduct teacher observations and classroom walkthroughs. We collect and analyze data on student performance. We develop and adapt instructional materials for teachers, create and deliver professional development sessions tailored to their needs. We meet with PLC content leads. We provide individual teacher feedback and coaching on best instructional practices. We assist in the administration of district and state testing. We collaborate with building administrators, coordinators, deans, media specialists, counselors, and PEPs on a wide range of issues. We attend PLCs in order to address instructional challenges, offer teaching strategies and content insights, clarify policies, content standards, curriculum, communicate expectations from school and district leadership, and facilitate data-driven discussions. In an average 2-week period, I know that I meet individually with anywhere from 15 to 20 teachers, including all these other things that I'm doing. These meetings range from coaching conversations to mentoring novice teachers, checking in with content leads, or simply being a thought partner for a teacher who's seeking some sort of guidance. And this list is not exhaustive. This is just what comes to my mind. So tonight, as you review this plan, I simply urge you to consider the significant impact that high school MCLs have on both teachers and students. Oh, and we also work with COE. Any proposed changes will undoubtedly affect this work and, in turn, the quality of instruction at our schools. Thank you.
Thank you. Gwen Jackson.
You just was dying to say that. Just dying to say that. Classified employees. Hey, some more. Classified employees. Miss Amber, you gonna come join us? It's not a committee. Just say classified.
Hi, my name is Gwendolyn Jackson, and I'm the co-chair of the CPPC. And what I'm about to share is a collection of thoughts from different individuals, some that I'm representing at large, and others that are 245-day employees as myself. The proposed changes seem heavily focused on administrative restructuring with very little emphasis on how this would directly impact students and teachers. It feels as though we are continually shifting roles at the top without a clear strategy on how these changes will improve student achievement or support our educators. Can you provide more insight into how this reorganization would benefit students and teachers on a practical level? Historically, classified staff have often been asked to make sacrifices, such as giving up days or taking on additional burdens during financial shortages. I have not seen similar asks of our licensed staff. Has there been any discussion around equity and shared responsibility among all staff groups when it comes to financial challenges? There has been no clear presentation of the full plan to all stakeholders. Can the plan be shared openly with all affected parties? The process appears to be a covert operation with only a select few privy to the details of the proposal. Action items are being presented for approval without a full understanding by those it will impact. How can we ensure transparency moving forward? Transparency breeds trust and openness, while the lack thereof fosters mistrust. How would the district address this gap to rebuild confidence among staff and stakeholders? During the 2017-2018 school year, 252-day employees had their contract days reduced by 7. Now there is a proposal to reduce an additional 5 days. What justifies this continued reduction, and what impact analysis has been conducted? The proposed reduction appear to be disproportionately affect certain staff members, effectively placing the burden of the $5.1 million deficit on the backs of a few. Is there a plan to ensure a more equitable distribution of this burden? How will the proposed plan affect the salaries of administrative personnel including those involved in drafting and approving the plan? Are there any reduction to administrative salaries as part of the deficit reduction strategy? Given the decline in enrollment, changes in state funding, why has a 3-year contract been promised to the superintendent while many current employees do not have the assurance of even a 1-year contract?
Ms. Jackson, I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Dr. Nadia St. Louis.
Good evening, school board members and Dr. Paluski. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all this evening. Well, first of all, I'm Dr. Nadia St. Louis, building principal of North Little Rock High School and North Little Rock Center of Excellence. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you this evening. While I understand addressing these concerns publicly may be unconventional, I feel compelled to advocate for the fairness and equity within our district. I would like to address 2 important matters. First, as we navigate 2025, Black women continue to face significant challenges in achieving equity and respect in the workplace. Challenges even more pronounced in leadership roles. I have personally, since being in Arkansas, have experienced these difficulties and have worked diligently to overcome them. It is deeply concerning to witness the impact of these systemic barriers on the Black women leaders within our executive team. Representation and leadership is critical to the success and inclusivity of our district. While I do understand budget cuts must be made, I urge you to ensure that these decisions are conducted with fairness, transparency, and a commitment to the workplace equity. Second, this year I was entrusted with the leadership of 2 schools as both the high school and the Center of Excellence principalship. Leading these institutions effectively is a complex and a demanding task, one that is only possible with a strong and capable team, which includes all of my teachers, administrators, my multi-classroom leaders, PEPs, and so many other people who play a vital role on my campus. Their contributions are invaluable to the success of our schools. Currently, I have 3 MCLs who serve both of my campuses and 1 PEP per school. While I'm uncertain about the specifics of the upcoming reorganization, I must strongly advocate for the retention of these positions at the high school and the Center of Excellence. If I am able to continue serving in this capacity, I can only do so with the dedicated individuals who help make our school thriving and a thriving environment. I am immensely grateful for the staff, and I believe many of our teachers would attest to the critical support they receive from our MCLs and PEPs and so many others. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. I hope you make these difficult decisions. As you make these difficult decisions, you will prioritize equity, transparency, and the well-being of our students and our staff. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ms. Deborah Rhodes.
Good evening. To Dr. Paluski, board members, faculty, administrative staff, community members, and all the stakeholders that make up the North Little Rock, the city of North Little Rock. Yes, I am a Black woman, but I'm also a proud citizen of North Little Rock. I'm president of North Little Rock National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, unit number 6026. And I know I was able to voice my opinion last week, and thank you so much for listening. But let me simply set the record straight. It was simply we answered a call to action. Our work is rooted in racial equity, civic engagement, and supportive policies and institutions for all marginalized people. We value education, so that also means we support the administrators, faculty, and staff that touch the lives of our children. Since the district is in distress, at least 5.1 million, we realized that the fat must be cut. We initially only knew of 7 Black female administrators at the district level. And since that time, we've seen other names of various support staff. And yet, the majority of those are women and persons of color. But let me assure you that we are in this thing together. It's not a black thing and it's not a white thing. We're asking for the right thing. I appeal to the board once again to do what's right. The reorganizational plan is certainly not a perfect plan, and we wanted to hear that plan, but it appears that the cart was pulled before the horse. Yeah, I know that the survey went out to 1,250 staff members over the district, and 163 surveys were returned. But I also know that we all are an island, and nobody stands alone. We all need each other. And just like that Pledge of Allegiance, because I am a proud American, with liberty and justice for all. And that's what we ask. I ask that you read the email that we sent to all the board members. And once again, I appeal to you, for the sake of our children, for the sake of those whose lives will be affected, let's come together and do the right thing. And I didn't come because I'm black. I came because I have been a part of this district for 40 years as a volunteer. My daughter is a teacher in this district for over 21 years. And I have another daughter who's been there for over 16 years. I do believe in this district. And I want you to believe not only in these administrators and staff and support, but for the children that make up the North Little Rock School District. God bless all of you and have a good night.
That concludes our public comments. The only action item tonight is 4.1, Central Office Administration School Network Support Reorganization Plan Proposal.
Madam President, members of our Board of Education, for the record, my name is Greg Paluski, the proud superintendent of the North Little Rock School District. And I start this meeting out with this question: who do we serve? Today we serve 7,817 students, their families, their caregivers, and our teachers that support them every day, as well as our administrators every day, as well as this community every day. So I open with that, Madam President and members of our Board of Education, to officially go over with you the Central Office Administration School Network Support Reorganization Plan Proposal. Phase 6, we've done 5 reorganizations in the last 4 years and 3 months since I've been here. Also, Mr. Beckett could not join me this evening, but he has reviewed the entire proposal as well. Number 1, the North Little Rock School District Board of Education FY26 budget planning non-negotiables. As I've understood from our Board of Education, the discussions that we've had, it was very clear. The first priority that you gave me is number 1, present a balanced budget to the Board of Education per policy 2.01. That is part of my role with our staff as well, as to come to you with the final say, which is your role. Number 2, I think there was a lot of miscommunication. We had our first budget meeting talking about the operational budget and where could we save, such as license, food, and so forth. And although we talked about benefits, because that's important to know when an organization is made up of 80% of an organization, whether it's a school district, a CEO, any company, it's made up of salary and benefits. So it's important that as the Board of Education, you know how much that we're paying in benefits, and I believe there was no recommendation to cut benefits. There is no recommendation in this proposal, nor there will be. So number 2 is ensure that there are 0 reductions to employee benefits. As was said by colleagues earlier, we've not been able to give our employees raises. There is no way that I would ever recommend to cut anybody's benefits, especially at a time like now. The third bullet, which was very adamant by our board, which is to say, pay attention to the employee budget survey and make sure that you and your staff comb through that and take all that into consideration when you think about how we're going to get to 5.1. This is my own personal philosophy, but I believe it's the same philosophy of yours, is number one, in my experience doing this, your number one priority is to protect the classroom at all costs. With our licensed teachers, that is the last place. I think you've heard in the news, it was said today, our colleagues across the river had to reduce their budget by $15 million, cutting several central office positions and teaching positions. Just came out in the Arkansas Gazette 2 days ago. They've got to cut $15 million again this year. It's $30 million over 2 years. So that has to be at a forefront. The other task that you've given me is to ensure that we have to maintain high-quality support for our teachers and our children and their families. And last but not least, to continue to save money to ensure our fiscal health, as well to ensure future raises. I will go over this slide in summary, but I will also go over this slide in more detail towards the end. At our last budget meeting, the budget before, what I'd recommended is there are areas within the operational budget that I believe that can be reduced. $200,000 for food on the taxpayer's dime needs to be reduced. License agreement. So we've identified those areas. That's $1.4 million. You'll see in big, bold, and red, 0 reductions in employee benefits. Over the weekend, on Saturday's workshop, the board tasked me with looking at central office reductions to the overall operation budget. This was in bucket 2. What you asked for was to reduce holiday pay and all contract days from 254 to 245. Now that includes maintenance, custodians, and 3 bus mechanics. That is an estimated saving of $43,000 and some change. The next thing that you asked from over the weekend was, what is the cost of reducing all contract days from 245 to 240? In this case, maintenance, custodian, only 4 bus mechanics would be exempt from that. And as you can see, that would net a savings of $192,940. You will see by the end, the central office school network support reorganization plan is estimated at a savings of $1.7 million. And then the reductions in vacant positions or a few eliminated positions would net a balance of $2.2 million with an overall total savings to address the funding loss at $5.6 million. And Madam President and members of our board, I'll go through that in much more detail when we go forward. I don't think it's going to be anybody's surprise that I'm going to start talking about where we are as a school district and starting with our data. As it was mentioned, when you see that chart up to your left, that is the total declining enrollment in our school district. Remember that as it relates to school funding, we're funded on K-12, not pre-K through 12. So when we use different numbers by 7,817, that's pre-K through 12. That number right there is estimated at 7,202 students as it is in 2025. That's foundational funding. That is the funding in which school districts, as it relates to third quarter ADM. Just for comparison, in the last 20 years, we've lost 1,908 students, or $14.8 million. Interestingly enough, just this week, I had my superintendent's teacher advisory. It is made up of around 10 students. They're in grades 6 through 12. And one of the first questions I asked them this week is, why do you believe children leave our school district from your point of view? And what do you think the number one reason was? Bullying. Not bad. Support service. They felt very strongly that a lot of our students are leaving because of mental health issues and not receiving wraparound services and supports to our school district. That was their number one reason. You want to know what their number 2 reason was? Not being treated with respect by adults. I had students talk to me in my office about standing in front of a class and being made fun of because they were stuttering. Can you imagine being made fun of because you were studying? I talked to a parent here not too long ago. You may have heard me talk about this story, and it was a Latino mother that was leaving our school district, and I asked her, I said, I have to ask, why are you leaving? What is the number one reason? And she said, nobody calls my son by his name. And I said, what is his name? Roberto. I said, well, what are they calling him? Taco. These are real stories from children that not work, but go to school in the North Little Rock School District. So I set the tone by that because that is the reality. That came right from students in our quantitative data. Over to the right, you're going to see enrollment by grade. I'm not going to go through all that, but I do find it interesting is that there's a huge spike in grade 2 right now. There's 622 students. And so typically in a grade level, there's about 540 students. So I did find that unusual, or a little bit of a spike. Who do we serve? 7,817 students. Our student enrollment demographic is made up of 58% African American, 20% Caucasian, a growing Hispanic population of 15%, which we've grown in the last 3 years of over 300 of our Hispanic students. That's a wonderful thing. 6%, which is 2 or more, and you can see by that graph as well, it's just in the percentile, in the percentage. Our school district number of free and reduced lunch students is at 74. We're going to talk about this. Obviously, you can see where there's some dips during the pandemic. However, that number is critical when you start to go below 70%, which is where part of our challenge is in a loss in funding. Our attendance rate is roughly around 94% for our Caucasians, and all other student groups there you'll see is anywhere between 91 and 92%. The difference between attendance in males and females at 92.42% and males at 92%. In the next graph that I show you is concerning to me. This is a combined graduation rate. Currently, the North Little Rock School District's combined graduation rate is at 78%. That concerns me. The national average is 87%, and the Arkansas graduation rate is at 88%. I am very concerned with that type of graduation rate. More importantly, if you look to the right, you're going to see a widening gap between males and females as it relates to graduation. 83% of our females are at 83% of a graduation rate, while at 73% are our males. That is alarming. That is concerning. This is a 7-year trend of our school letter grades. Obviously, you're going to see a dip right here, and that was during the years of the pandemic. And then as we've shifted and coming out of the pandemic, we currently have 10 schools that are below the level of a C. When I start talking about some Atlas data here shortly, I'm going to briefly talk about a change in how the calculation of the new letter grade, and those new letter grades will be coming out shortly this month. North Little Rock School District transformation. Over the last 5 years, the North Little Rock School District has engaged in systemic transformation to raise outcomes for all students, improving systems and structures, process, procedures, human capital, with the aim of improving teaching and learning. As presented in the Superintendent's 100-day transition plan summary report on April 15th of 2021, and a school board resolution in support of the Superintendent's 100-day plan approved on May 20th, 21, provided the framework for implementing a much-needed change initiatives in the North Little Rock School District. A key accomplishment among the North Little Rock School District Board of Education's district administration, key stakeholders during this period has been the creation of a new vision and a new mission in order to set long-term direction for the school district as its foundation. As such, the aim is to provide clear direction for the organization and the community, guide strategic decision-making, inspire internal and external stakeholders, and align to a common future state. Why is this critical? This is critical especially in times when facing challenges, when facing changes, internal, external shifts, while ensuring the school district is working cohesively towards a unified purpose. This is evident, you saw this last week, that is evident in the adoption of the statements that have been shared at every single regular board meeting, and also known as the North Little Rock School District Blueprint for Transformation. Our collective commitment and strategic focus for 2024 and 2029. Our vision statement, our community, our schools, where your future begins. Our mission, the North Little Rock School District will prepare all students for their future by offering a well-rounded, relevant, innovative education that allows each child to achieve their full potential in a safe, should say healthy as well, supportive learning environment to be future ready. Our moral purpose, and I'll stop after this, as a community, our moral purpose is that all children will achieve, have a high-quality teacher, have a high-quality leader, have a supportive learning environment. We will not, and this is one of the things I loved about the school board, take a stand, we will not allow an achievement gap in the North Little Rock School District, period. We've also gone through, and I'm so proud of the work, I'm not going to read all those, but we've identified every single future-ready skill we want a child to leave with in the North Little Rock School District, and we posted that. Our organizational core values, how are we going to act, how are we going to operate, and then our 5-year strategic plan goals, rigorous and relevant and innovative learning, a safe, a healthy, a supportive learning environment, organizational effectiveness, have a high-quality teacher, leader, and an employee, and engage, inform, and empower stakeholders. I set that, Madam President and members of our Board of Education, to explain in this reorganization a little bit about where we've been and a little bit about where we're going, and some of the most impactful internal and external factors that have influenced change in the North Little Rock School District. Education in post-COVID-19 era. Since November of 2020, the North Little Rock School District has undergone significant changes, driven both internally and externally, impacting the overall organization. First, a significant external change, and we don't use this as an excuse, but it is a reality, that the impact of the school district during this period continues to have been the gradual release from global COVID-19 pandemic impacting societies and economies in North Little Rock and around the world. Interesting to me that the World Health Organization just on May 5th of 2023 stated an end to the global pandemic. That is less than today. We are nearly 2 years past the official end of the pandemic. However, according to Pinto, 2023, and I cite, the pandemic's impact on a child's education has resulted in learning loss, largely from declining enrollment, and the amount of effective instructional time and emotive instructional delivery. As such, disrupting learning at any level for any period of time has overarching social and economic effects, including a widening achievement gap. And I quote, empirical evidence has linked social closures to several factors, including rising mental health concerns, lower levels of engagement, reports of violence against children, rising obesity, increases in teenage pregnancy, rising levels of chronic absenteeism, dropouts, and overall deficits in the development of the social economic skills due to social isolation and the network and the peers. Pinto, 2023. Child well-being. In addition, according to Annie Casey Foundation, in 2024, there, and as noted in the Kids Count data book regarding state trends in child well-being, check out this data from Arkansas. The combined data is across 4 domains, which include economic, education, health, and family and community. Arkansas's overall child well-being rank is 45 out of 50 states. Arkansas's economic child well-being rank is 46 out of 50 states. Arkansas's education child well-being rank is actually 36 out of 50 states, and its health ranking is 47 out of 50 states. Arkansas families and community well-being rank is 46 out of 50 states. Table 6, which is right here, I'm not going to go through all that, but that gives a breakdown of this data and as it relates to each one of those factors, some of which you could highlight children in poverty, teens not in school and not working, 4th graders not proficient in reading, high school graduation rate and graduating on time, children without health care insurance, child and teen deaths, single parent families, and children living in high poverty areas. Family and community involvement renewal. With this data in mind, it goes without saying that the city of North Little Rock and the North Little Rock School District are simply a microcosm of this alarming state trend data at the local level and its impact on child well-being in our local communities. The city of North Little Rock, as we all know, and the schools it serves are made up of small community networks, if you see in Table 7. They're made up of parents. They're made up of caregivers, extended family, friends, neighbors, community centers, organization, outdoor recreation centers, religious institutions, health institutions, housing, and other service providers and resources. Further, according to FAIR in 2020, there are a multitude of adversities facing families and children today to include mental health, substance use, addiction problems, physical illness, domestic and community violence, parent abuse, neglect, poverty, trauma, insecure housing, relationship breakdowns, and unemployment, to list a few. Those are staggering. All of our schools deal with some aspect, and we all know the research behind what happens on the outside of school has a direct impact on what happens inside of school. There are only so many things that we can control inside, and there are things that we can't control outside. But there's one thing we can do, and that's support our children and our families better than we currently are. And we need to, based upon this data as well as others. And you'll see on this particular chart is made up of all of our smaller community networks. And I just listed a few. Those are neighborhood associations. We know within those neighborhood associations that are deep, smaller networks that comprise of churches, comprise of family groups, so forth and so on. And I believe part of our future is better tapping into these social networks. Therefore, it's paramount that the North Little Rock School District continues to evolve and transform to enhance direct involvement with families and its smaller communities to meet students and caregiver needs, to thrive in school with the aim of providing coordinated wraparound services through school and community networks within 24 hours. Think about that as a goal. If a child needs something and a family needs something, that we're able to say and be able to provide that within 24 hours. And I quote, "Supportive connections with the village. It takes a village to raise a child. Members are valuable of both children and parents. In her semi-annual longitudinal study of high-risk students, Warner found that children from high-risk backgrounds who formed bonds with caring and trusting and other adults turned out to be more resilient than those who did not form such connections. Connections also help parents, found that parents who have access to social networks and supports when looking for after children report less parental stress than other parents. Likewise, communities with strong formal and informal networks are associated with lower rates of child maltreatment." Number 2, the LEARNS Act. The Atlas Assessment. One of the most significant internal changes that has impacted the North Little Rock School District over the last several years has been the implementation of the Literacy Empowerment, Accountability, Readiness Network, and Social School Safety, otherwise known as the LEARN Act. On January 11th, 2023, Governor Huckabee Sanders signed the executive orders to prioritize literacy empowerment, accountability, networking, safety, and security. The implementation of this order had a change to improve many areas of the Arkansas education system. Specifically, under the LEARNS Act, there's a priority focus on improving literacy, providing evidence-based instruction, screening, giving parents more choice, transparency, online resources, rewarding good teachers with incentives and higher pay, prepare students for careers beyond, offering internships, apprenticeships, career and technology programs, expanded high-speed internet, to name a few, career accessibility, and improved school safety. The implementation of the LEARNS Act has also changed the state accountability assessment system to the Arkansas Teaching and Learning and Assessment System. It's also known as ATLAS. The 2023-2024 school year was the first year of implementing the ATLAS assessment, paving the way for a new baseline of data in English language arts, math, and science for the North Little Rock School District. And when I show you in Table 8 below summarizes the performance of the North Little Rock School District in grades 3 through 10 in levels 1, in level 1, which is understanding, level 2, basic understanding, level 3, proficiency, and level 4, which is advanced. For comparison, Arkansas statewide proficiency levels in science for grades 3 through 10 is only 35%. In mathematics statewide, the proficiency level in 3 through 10 is 32.61%, and the proficiency of English language arts in grades 3 through 10 is 34%. This data that you've seen before you is the Atlas data that we've shared. I'll draw your attention to our proficiency rates. Here, again, something to take into consideration. This is first-year data. This is actually last year, first time that we took the assessment. Can't compare it to ACT Aspire. I'll use a comparison of level 1 and 2. If you are above level 1 and 2, or 3 or 4, the state considers that proficiency. So as you can see, locally our proficiency in science is 23%, in mathematics 19%, and in English language arts 24%, respectively. But when you look at the number of students, and I want you to pay attention to these yellow bars, because those are our level 1 students, and then the green bars, which combine to those two when I talk about growth data in a minute. Proficiency. Table 9. You have not seen this data yet, but you will see this data as it relates to Thursday when Dr. Reynolds is going to present growth data. What this chart is going to show you, you'll see a little bit of red and you'll see a little bit of green. This is actually the growth score. So what's going to happen in the new letter grade calculation, it will be made up of 33.3% of achievement, which is the data that I just showed you. Then it'll be made up of 33.3% of students making growth. And then it'll be made up of 33.3% of the bottom quartile, your lowest students, and if you're moving them. So I would like to highlight just briefly some of the trends that we have found in our quantitative Atlas data so far for following year. The Atlas data growth indicates the following trends: a positive district student growth in geometry as well as science. That's positive. Levels 2 and 4 students have positive growth. And we're seeing significant growth in our English language learner student group that is exhibiting positive growth. Those are all positive things that we need to continue to build on. However, this is what's alarming. Our level 1 students have negative growth. So let me go back. Our level 1 students have negative growth. And that's going to be based upon moving that bottom number of students. Now, we've put more things in place this year than we have in the past. We've put some high-impact tutoring grants in. We've got Teslets where we're able to diagnose students and teachers. But that is alarming when you think about how we're going to be calculated overall. But a continued work in progress. I do want to also capture that as the district continues to implement systems, structures, process, procedures to implement changes to improve teaching and learning, from the LEARNS Act, it's also important to recognize the school district has been implementing strategies from key focus areas outlined in the 2022 North Little Rock School District Curriculum Management Audit. Those key focus areas include a district vision accountability, curriculum, consistency, equity, assessment, and feedback, and E, productivity. Productivity should be evident when all aspects of the system operations in the world of teaching and learning are functioning and effective within fiscal constraints. 3, organizational restructuring. The school district has implemented significant changes internally to the organizational structure over the course of the last 5 years to meet the individual needs of schools and the overall organization as it continues to strive to be more effective, to be more efficient, to be more cohesive, to achieve the new vision, mission, and moral purpose. Hence, it is essential that an organization structure adapts and changes to the needs of the school district and the schools and the smaller communities that it serves. Therefore, significant structurings have included A, district administration, B, central office reorganization phase 1, school safety, security, emergency services, medical services reorganization phase 2, human resources reorganization phase 3, 7th Street Elementary School reconfigure and transformation plan, which I didn't count that as the overall, but we did. The instructional and wraparound service was a partial reorganization. If you remember, that one got stopped about late April, but we did continue with the stipend only. And then most recently with phase 5, which involved the FY non-licensed salary schedule in the area of operations. And this would make the sixth reorganization that we would have tackled as a school board and a superintendent in 4 years and 3 months. But I want you to keep this in mind. Prior to November of 2020, the central office administration organization structure remained relatively unchanged for the 10 to 15 years prior. Why? Let me read that again. The central office administration organization structure remained relatively unchanged for the 10 to 15 years prior. As such, the accomplishments of such reorganization efforts by this Board of Education support a relentless focus to improve the North Little Rock School District overall. And finally, loss of funding. Fourth, another significant blend of internal and external change that is impacting the North Little Rock School District and school systems across the United States has been the loss of funding. School districts nationwide have been working through a multitude of challenges such as persistent loss of learning, lower enrollments, inflation, a national teacher shortage, and the end of the elementary and secondary school emergency relief program fund, as we know, ESSER. And I quote, ESSER-related budget declines could be compounded by inflation, continued declines in student enrollment, and the rise of the cost of labor. Historically, national public school revenues have increased 2% in a year and outpaced inflation. However, 77% of districts are concerned that funding may no longer keep up with inflation, driving by the rising cost of labor, transportation, and food services. On the enrollment front, hold harmless provisions during the pandemic largely protected districts from pandemic-related enrollment drops. As these expire, districts will, with declining enrollment, will face corresponding budget declines, and I quote from Redmond, Dorn, Shillate, and McBride, 2024. In addition, and I quote, the end of the ESSER grants will be accomplished in several states by cutting other funding streams for education. A recent report by the CBPP found that 17 states, more than half of them in the South, are pursuing 2 or more policies that would cut education revenue, even as they face a loss of more than 5% in education funding during the end of ESSER. Arkansas, for an example, is facing a 6.8% decrease in education funding due to the end of ESSER, even as it's pursuing income and property tax and funding shifts to school vouchers. The CBPP report estimates that the ESSER loss, as well as the tax policies, will result in the loss of nearly $2 billion in education funds in Arkansas in the 2025 fiscal year. Seegers, 2024. With this in mind, the North Little Rock School District is similar to many school systems regarding budget declines and loss of funding. As such, the district forecasts a $5.1 million operational funding loss impact for the 25-26 school year. This reorganizational proposal is to address the loss in funding while addressing a service delivery model to more effectively and efficiently meet the needs of students and their families. So, Table 10, which is in front of you, is another overview that we did on Saturday, and another overview that we provide again as to how do we get to the $5.1 million. 2.7 of that is the loss of state foundation funding. That's directly correlation to the loss of students, so that's loss of student enrollment. The $1 million in the ESA, the FY26 funding, that's enhanced student achievement, that's state money. That number is driven by the poverty rate, and we've talked about this before. When under COVID-19, DHS made it a little bit more loose and under qualifying for the poverty rate. Now that we're post-pandemic, they're tightening those ranges, so it's going to be a little bit harder. We might have to go back to the individual forms. But if that poverty rate goes below 70, which is what we project from 74, under that is a loss of $1 million and could be a loss of $1 million in the next 4 years. I know you've seen another chart of Mr. Brown. And finally, the last is the $1.4 million in ESSER salaries that had to be moved into operational during FY28. If you remember, a little over a year ago, that we had a reorganization plan that dealt with instructional service and wraparound, and unfortunately that came too late to the board, and we had to put a pause on that, but we did move forward with the stipends that came out of that, so we told that we would come back this year. That's how you get to the $5.1 million in loss of the funding loss, which is how we get to this point today. Introduction to School Network Support Model. School networks are groups of schools in geographic locations that share resources, supports, and expertise to improve teaching and learning and meet a student's individual and family's needs to thrive in school with the aim of providing those wraparound services through school and community networks within 24 hours. According to Vander Ark and Dobbins in 2018, the school network support model is grounded in formal and informal social networks to improve achievement for students and foster opportunities for high-quality teaching and learning that is personalized while sharing critical information for providing just-in-time wraparound services. Table 11, as you see below, illustrates the foundation for a school network support model, which is grounded in the interconnectivity between a school, a child, their family, and the community. I believe that we all know the interconnectivity between these circles. That what happens in the life of a child outside, their family dynamic, what happens in their community, has a direct impact on what happens in schools. And therefore, it is finding the need, getting the need, finding the right resource, finding the right support, and getting that to the child within the allotted time and the aim within 24 hours. Therefore, in this proposal of the school network of support model is to divide our schools into two networks, Network A and Network B. So if you think about taking JFK and Main Street, which is right down the center, that would be all those campuses, which would be to the west. That would be the Network A. And then Network B would be all the schools that would be to the east, with the exception of the North Little Rock Academy. You will also see that there are schools that are highlighted with red asterisks. Those schools are all in some type of level of state level of school improvement. North Little Rock Academy is not a school. It is a program. It is part of our ALE program. But the reason I put an asterisk beside that is because of the graduation rate. You saw the graduation rate at 78%. That because the students that attend in 6 through 12 at ALE, those students, their data counts back to their home school. So to make it divided out was 7 and 7 makes it a lot easier from a supervisory standpoint. Currently, our executive director of elementary school performance has 10 schools to supervise. That's a lot. 4 of those schools are in state level and school improvement. That's a lot for any one individual. On the other side, on the secondary side, we now have 4 principals. And once we've collapsed that under Dr. St. Louis's leadership, we used to have 5, and then we've had 4. And so that supervisory piece has had to move through the district to be able to supervise those principals this year. So if you look at this from number 1, a geographic network standpoint, or those schools, and really the shift here in this model is going from a leveled approach to more of a pre-K through secondary approach and dividing the responsibility to level out the needs of schools as well as the schools that are in state level and school improvement. Elementary schools are elementary schools are elementary schools. They will always have to meet as a network because the needs of elementary schools are so much different than middle schools or even high schools. Secondary schools will have to continue to meet as a network. Absolutely. But when you look at it from a supervisory standpoint, and I'll show you about meeting the needs within this network, I believe this is a better pathway forward to meet the needs of the community and more specifically children and their parents. With that said, in the network model, what we all know is what we want to be able to do in a more, what we know that works for students. We know they need caring adults. We know they need access to food. We know they need access to mental health and physical health. They need access to housing. They have to have that sense of safety, not only safety at school, safety at home, and safety in their community. In my experience, that when I've dealt with children that have carried a gun from home to school, it is literally to get in through the community. It is not about meaning harm necessarily at that school, but they want to be safe within their community. We all know that our students have to have access to interventions. We've done some work in this area already, individual reading plans, read-at-home plans, and we really need to go to a next level about family plans and home plans of what our educators implementing evidence-based solutions, access to bolstering network resources, and equip children with what they need in order to learn, And this whole notion of connecting more families to vital resources such as emergency food pantries and childcare, and strategically addressing the chronic absenteeism. We were just at a school the other day talking to one of the principals and talking about chronic absenteeism. Can't teach them if they're not there. And that's being able to reach out into those networks and those families and find out what the barrier is so they're back at school. With that said, I am an advocate of Bright Futures. Bright Futures is a nonprofit organization. There are many schools in Arkansas and around the United States that use this free resource. I think it's like $3,000 to sign up for. But what it's really meant to do is provide a framework that helps schools and school communities deepen their relationships within those communities to get resources to children at the time they need it within 24 hours. So the Bright Futures Frameworks helps you develop relationships through your community, as well as which allow you to channel resources to improve your school, which in turn benefit your community. And it's really a holistic approach through that network. In fact, at the next April meeting, Bright Futures will be coming to present to our school board and our community about what that framework is, and why we believe this framework is a great connection with the network model so that we can provide more just-in-time resources and really connecting neighbors, employees, and building capacity around time, talent, and treasures. Therefore, that becomes a vital element of the network model. And therefore, it was mentioned around wraparound services. In this reorganization proposal, in Network A and Network B, right now I believe, and I'll show you that crosswalk, there are 10 human service workers as well as combined and parent engagement professionals. We all know that not every school of ours has a parent engagement professional. But I will tell you, when you talk to a principal who doesn't have one, they'd love to have one. So in the network model, what this shows, there will be 5 network wraparound service specialists attached to Network A, one of which is going to be a language interpreter specialist. We must do a better job. Must do a better job breaking language barriers with our English language learner community. We have to do a better job. We're a growing population in this area. I get requests all the times from schools, hey, can we get some additional support? So on the other side of this, there will be 5 network wraparound service specialists that will be attached to Network B. Again, you'll see at the bottom that one of them will be a language interpreter specialist. Because we don't have one-to-one, this model more than likely would look like 1 network wraparound service specialist maybe per 2 school, while our largest campus, like the high school and COE, would have 2. Or the 7th and 8th grade, that middle school campus would have 2 because they have a larger population. The goal, the training around Bright Futures is to equip all of these individuals with not only the training, but getting connected with the families that need those resources and those wraparound services and get them in 24 hours. And also, the vision is that they become literally customer service ambassadors for our schools and school campuses. Because I believe, and we all believe, if those individuals are connecting with those parents are feeling welcome, those parents are feeling like they're getting the services that they need, we have to retain the students that we have while we're growing our own. So in the network model, these actually 10 would be school-based at campuses, but they would be supervised by a coordinator of network wraparound services. So that coordinator of network wraparound services would almost be like the quarterback of each network wraparound services, working in all of Network A and all of Network B, monitoring strategic data points such as chronic absenteeism and making sure we're addressing the need as fast as we can. The other thing that I've heard loud and clear, you heard it tonight, was instructional specialists or coaches. You know, all the way back last year that we had this hodgepodge. We had MCLs, we've had literacy coaches, math coaches, instructional coaches. We're all over the place. And so in this network model, it creates a network instructional specialist for every single one of our schools. So if you look at School Network A, with the exception of Pikeview, which their assistant principal is a curriculum specialist, almost serves in this capacity, but Boone Park, Ridge Road, Amboy, Indian Hills, all would have their dedicated network instructional specialist. At the elementary level, we know there has to be a focus on reading, math. I would love to have a reading, math, and science in every single one of our schools. We can't afford it. But we have to put resources back in schools, and at least in this model, each principal gets to pick who their network instructional specialist is. But in that, they're going to have to be highly trained with a focus on literacy, but also support with math as well as supporting with science. At the secondary level, you'll see here, North Little Rock High School and COE, we dedicate 3 network instructional specialists, and we will work with those secondary principals. One of those obviously might be mathematics, one might be ELA, and one might be science, because those are 3 tested areas. In Network B, you'll see that every single one of these schools will have their own network instructional support specialist, with the exception of the 7th and 8th grade campus. They will have 2. That's purely built around having sheer numbers of more teachers and more students. Again, these are school-based. These report to the principal. The principal will interview these individuals, select these individuals, and they will be housed at their campus. Unlike if we go back in this model within the network, they will be fluid within the network, working in schools, but reporting to the coordinator. And it's not to say that we can't move more wraparound services maybe to one school over another if there was a greater need, house fire, that type of thing. As I move into the overall organizational chart, I'll just give a high-level overview. This was all the way back in November of 2024. And if you remember, that's a lot to digest from where it is. But from within that structure, we've had to move around operations that was a part of instruction. It was all over the place. And as you recall, since then, we've moved into the operations side of the house, which is the chief of staff to the superintendent, and those 8 functions, and then on the other side, which is the instructional side of the house, which includes those 4 areas. So in this reorganization model and this proposal, it has a superintendent that reports to 7 school board members. Ms. Colquitt is a split resource between being the clerk at the board and also being my assistant. And then it would have 4 direct reports to the superintendent. One being the chief of staff, which has all operations, and then it would call for an assistant superintendent of school improvement over Network A, and that would be the function of responsibility of all those schools within Network A. Assistant superintendent of school improvement Network B, all the schools in Network B, and then last would be 3rd, which would be the assistant superintendent of school network support services, and I'll show you what that looks like here in a second. But the reality of this is taking and consolidating some jobs and reorganizing them and reorganizing the work. And that is the chief of staff position. The only change there would be moving the director of student athlete development, which was reorganized just a year ago, and over into the operations side. And then these would be 3 direct reports on the instructional side of the house. As you can see, Network A, that's all the principals that would fall under, and I did not highlight the schools in that area that are in state level of school improvement, but that assistant superintendent would have 7 schools to supervise, 3 of which are in state level of school improvement or a school such as the academy. The assistant superintendent of school network improvement B will have 7 principals that will report to them, 3 of which schools are in state level of school improvement. And in the last, which is the assistant superintendent of school network support services, really combines 3 departments. It combines the Division of Curriculum Instruction, Student Support Services, and it also combines special education as well. And you'll see most of in the content area are content coordinators, with the exception of reading and mathematics. Excuse me. They're running programs that are P12. And we were fortunate to add some of those resources, obviously most of them, during ESSER, and I can go back and explain that in 1 second. In this model, it calls for 1 coordinator in reading, in literacy, P12, math coordinator, P12, All of our other areas are already serving in that capacity as well. And you'll also see in here where the coordinator of school network wraparound services reports to that assistant superintendent. So now we're consolidating and putting all those coordinators under one individual and working in tandem with the other assistant superintendents within those networks based upon the individual needs of their campuses. So with that, and you're used to this, this position crosswalk, we've done this many times, but it goes to show you where the current position is and then what would be the future position. And so I'll roughly go over that. The first position is the deputy superintendent. In this reorganization would be the elimination of that position. The executive director of curriculum, innovation and design, that position would be reorganized into the assistant superintendent of school network support services. The executive director of elementary school performance would be reorganized into the assistant superintendent of school improvement network A. The executive director of secondary school improvement, this has been a vacancy. We've not been able to fill that for the better part of the year. That would be reorganized into the assistant superintendent of school improvement network B. The executive director of special services, that position would be eliminated. The director of school effectiveness and literacy enforcement, that position would be eliminated. The coordinator of school health, that would be eliminated, but that position and that work gets rolled into the wraparound network, wraparound services. The coordinator of parent and family engagement, that position is reorganized to the coordinator of school network wraparound services. The homeless liaison, that position has been vacant, so that position will be eliminated. The coordinator of elementary math, that has been vacant for just about half the year. That position would be eliminated. The coordinator of secondary mathematics would be reorganized to the coordinator of math P12. The coordinator of elementary reading and integrated literacy, there's 3 positions in the literacy realm, that position would be eliminated. The coordinator of early childhood and school readiness, that position would be eliminated. The coordinator of secondary reading and English language arts, that position would be reorganized to a coordinator of reading, again, more in a P12 model. And the 504 transportation administrator, that position would be eliminated. And we have one dyslexia specialist that would be eliminated as well. And I'll give you this cost breakdown in a second. On the second side of this, you see that we have 16. This is either you got a math coach, a literacy coach, an instructional coach, MCLs, or the MCLs that are vacant. That is a total of 16. Those 16 positions will be reorganized, and there'll be 16 positions that will be network instructional specialists. They will be school-based, and they will be reorganized, but they will be assigned and hired by school principals. Underneath that, when you go down to the next one, this is wraparound services. I think there's 3 human service workers, 1 parent engagement professional. It's out of 1 bucket, and there's 6, 7. There's 10 total of those positions. Those positions will get reorganized and put directly back into supporting schools. So those will be network wraparound service specialists. There will be 10 of those. They will be working in conjunction with the principals, obviously, and the assistant superintendents. However, they will report to the coordinator of school network wraparound services, and they will be network-based, school-based as well. And I'll go over that cost estimate with you as well. And finally, is the last, this is the North Little Rock School District vacant or eliminated positions. The majority of these are vacant positions. As we do position control every Tuesday, and as we've worked to look at positions in which they can be vacated, the first one is a transportation dispatcher. That is vacant. 6 night custodians are vacant. There are 2 security officers that are vacant. 3 maintenance helpers that are vacant. STEAM Lab is one of the only exceptions. There are 5 vacancies, but there are 4. They're also being reorganized in this as well, as we've got to look at a new model. We have some schools that do not have STEM facilitators right now. Some are piloting a gifted and talented program. Some are also doubling up on the wheel. Dr. Harbin has been working diligently on redesigning our gifted and talented program. Looking at those numbers, we've lost 88 gifted and talented students in the last 2 years. That's the equivalent of about $750,000. We've got to do a better job servicing our gifted and talented students as well. Also in this is the Dean of Students at 7th Street, which is vacant, nurse, which is vacant, a painter, which is vacant, locksmith, and then most of the following 11, when you go down through 17, those are high school positions. As Dr. St. Louis and her staff have gone through, based on declining enrollment, what courses that they're going to offer, those are positions that were recommended that were going to be vacant. Also, with the combination of the COE and the principal, we'll be removing that position. And then you've got English language, ELA in middle school, special education. These are all vacant positions as ESOL, and then the last math. And then that goes down to an overall estimate that I'll go into the final of how we got to where we are. So let me recap. So the $1.4 million is what we've recommended to the board out of the operational budget. That was the all those things in central office that did not have an impact on an individual. Again, I use the licenses, I use food, those kinds of things. There seemed to be a consensus around that. 0 reductions to employee benefits. Again, based upon the workshop, you have the numbers that are right there. The central office reorganization, network support, so that included all the restructuring with the leadership component as well as the wraparound service specialist and including the network instructional specialist. That would net a $1.7 million savings, and then the reductions in vacant positions or the few that we had to eliminate, that gets to a grand total of $5.6 million in total savings to address the funding loss. With that, I would also keep in mind that it was also directed to the board that we continue to look for savings, that we continue, as I mentioned on another slide, as we continue to look for savings. We've got, certainly rising costs of inflation. I've talked about the poverty rate. There's another $1 million in another year that we're going to have to. And overall, there's just the references. But overall speaking, that is the general overall presentation given the task that I was handed, as well as a blueprint or roadmap on how we would get to the 5.1 by staying as best as we could within those areas, parameters that was given by the school board. Madam President, I'll absolutely be willing to take any questions.
All righty, that was a lot.
And I'm sorry?
I said, who's going to be left?
Well, and remember tonight is, you'll see on your yellow sheet, tonight is the action is simply just to send it to the LPPC and CPPC for 10 days, so as we've always done, so that they have an opportunity to discuss, they have an opportunity to provide input and feedback before it would come back to you.
Are there any questions, Ms. West? Questions or comments?
Yeah, I got a whole lot. Okay, so we're at the 5.1 that we absolutely need to immediately stop the bleeding, right?
Correct.
So all of this would net us approximately 5.6, correct? Is that what I heard?
Yes.
Okay. So in the grand scheme of things, isn't that much? Because what we really need is the almost 10 million to stop the hemorrhaging.
Well, if I mean, this is going to make us whole, but if it is the will of the board to get to one day getting to raises, you typically have to be about 9 million in order to do that.
So this right here is not going to even get the raises because we still need to get to the 9 and something million, correct?
Correct. You're probably looking at least a $2 million in order to give, don't quote me, maybe 2.2 to 2.4, giving classified a 4% raise and license a 2% raise. Don't quote me on those numbers. We'll be happy to give that back to you.
I'm just thinking that I know that we need to get to approximately about a $10 million savings.
Sure.
To make us better,
sure,
and then 5.1 to stop the bleeding,
sure.
Immediate bleeding.
The other thing to keep in mind about this, no matter whatever position that we reorganize, and we've done this now for 6 times, when we pick a number, we pick the mid-range of that scale, because somebody might come in lower than it or somebody might come in higher than it. So that's what we call salary lapse. That happens every year. We budget a certain amount of money, and then as people come and people go, so there's got to be flexibility within the budget to be able to do that. I just say that as a reference point.
So with that being said, I'm thinking of what is needed on a federal level, and we have to have the health and wellness component in there. And maybe this might be a sit-down conversation that we can have later, but we have
Sure.
to have federally the health and wellness component in there. And I know that just by looking at this, it looks as though it's going somewhere. But I'm trying to figure out, and I'm trying to process in this short amount of time, how we're going to do that and be in federal compliance and not have that aspect. And
Yeah,
basically, I mean, ASBA modeled their policy after hours. So I'm trying to figure out, like, how do we stay in compliance with some of what is in here that I'm confused, to be honest with you. And I mean, some of this I really am confused on, because I don't know how we're going to be compliant in some areas and how we're going to still promise a group of people that's been raises. My mom was a teacher. I get it, y'all. I promise you I do. She taught for 50 years. She's still teaching.
Yeah. So, and
However, I'm trying to figure out if we're trying to stop hemorrhaging, bleeding is 5.1. Hemorrhaging is getting to 10 million. So we're talking about a Band-Aid and a full-out gauze pad with tape. So how do we figure this out and do this in the right way? Because now I feel like we're shifting positions and we're playing whack-a-mole and trying to throw noodles at the wall to see what sticks. And now we're at 6.
So,
okay, go on.
No, I just, what I want to say is, what we have to think of, this is a completely different model. It's a completely different model than where we've been before.
It is. It is, and it looks good.
And with comes a different model, comes a different structure, and a research-based structure in order to provide more support and services to students and their families, as well as remain those resources that are attached to schools. So if it's on the compliance, I'm more than happy to sit down, Ms. Person West, individually to go over any of those.
Well, because when I'm looking at the people that's coming up here, and I still don't know as far as personnel who's all involved with this, but just as it kind of trickles along, it looks like, and it feels like, and to me it appears like we might be a little bit kind of out of the way of compliance. Like, for example, unlicensed can't supervise license. What we gonna do about that? So I'm trying to figure out, like, how we getting into some nasty waters, and I don't like nasty waters, because then that puts the 7 of us in liability, and I ain't gonna do nasty waters, which I love you,
sure,
and I think you're a great guy, and
sure,
you're cool with me on a personal level,
yeah,
but I'm not gonna do nasty waters with you.
So, okay.
What I mean by that is we got to do stuff decent and in order, and we have
sure,
to make sure that if we're gonna make sure that we do stuff and pull the right positions in play for this, we're going to have to make sure, in my opinion, that we have to do our hard due diligence work. And that's why, to me, it was important that, yes, we've seen this budget stuff before. However, we have the public that we have to be responsible to for what is done and presented. However, I don't want us to get into a situation where we wash, rinse, and repeat. And that's what now 6 is starting to feel like to me, because it's kind of stepping out of, this ain't, I mean, it sounds good in some areas. However, this 5.1 savings ain't gonna get teachers raises. Let's be honest with that. And even if we get to 5.6, that still ain't gonna help us. So I don't want to sell anybody a hoop dream, and I don't want to feel like, you know, this is finna be the start all, end all, be all, but we need 10 million. Anybody out there got it for us? Because I take donations today.
If the board is asking me to get to 10 million this year.
No, I'm not asking you to get to 10 million this year. I'm just saying, we keep saying about these raises, and then the 180 people that said they wanted raises. I get it. If I could, I want to raise too. I really do. However, I ain't been able to get one. So therefore, what I'm saying to you is, we have to be not only, why some, you know, you can't never go back and undo what you already did. However, we could have made some better decisions 2 years ago. And I take the ownership and the blame for that, because I was on this board 2 years ago.
So are you referring to the curriculum department?
I'm referring to,
those would have been the ESSER
I'm
positions.
referring to maybe how things were done, not what was done, but maybe how things were done. And I feel that the way we're doing it now is still not going to get us to where we need to be, maybe where we want to be for right now, so it can feel good, make it feel better going down. But I don't think that this is all the way. I don't know. I'm just feel like some of this maybe just put us out of compliance a bit.
Yeah,
now,
well,
that's just me.
Sure. So just let me put you at
maybe
ease.
we have to have a further conversation.
Sure. I'm not
know,
gonna go into divulging any privileged information, but I will reiterate again. This has all been reviewed by legal counsel.
I get it. I get it.
So there's nothing in here that we're not doing. It's not being compliant. Nothing against the law, and you.
I get it, but we do have to have certain components in place as it relates to just us being a school. And if we get too far down the road, North Little Rock School District as we once knew it may not be anymore. I would hate that because my children are product of North Little Rock School District. And I have worked like a dog in North Little Rock School District since my children have been here. And several of us have had children coming up through this district. Several of us have been through this district. However, you know, I'm Joe T. Robinson. They got my statue standing out there. But, nice little joke. But the thing about it is we love this school district. And I want it to be better.
Sure.
But you and I shall talk. And you know I have no problem with coming to you and telling you exactly how I feel.
Likewise.
I'm done.
Ms. Temple?
I would like to continue to listen and come back. I think Ms. Wonkum looks like she's ready.
She wants to come back because Ms. Wonkum.
I've got 3 pages worth of notes.
Yes, ma'am.
So buckle in. What I've been hearing is that a race-based story was ran on Channel 11. And then seeing the plan now, we have over 40 people being affected of all races and both genders. We're to put the kids first, and by meeting the needs of our students, decisions have to be made. Teachers need and want raises. There's been an increase in cost.
Sorry, I was just trying to kill the bug. Y'all keep on. It's dead. The bug's dead. It was so good.
Teachers in need and want raises because there's been an increase of cost of living.
They can't hear you.
We've talked about reduction of days in order for us to get a savings. We've talked about the administrative salary being affected across the district. That includes you on your contract days.
It does. Yes, it does.
We've talked about $5.1 million is being needed. We've talked about the Little Rock School District cutting $15 million. They've got another $15 million to go. We've talked about the funding that comes from kindergarten to 12th grade. We've talked about our demographics. 58% is black, 20% white, 15% Hispanic, and 6% is 2 or more races. We've got decisions to be made, and we've got a fiscal responsibility with our job. In 4 years and 3 months, we've had 6 organization plans come before us. Not all of them have been full. Some of them have been partial. I worry about the racist rhetoric being in our school district. I worry about how it affects our work family, our community, and the future enrollment of our school district as we sit here and we are down enrollment. According to our data, we have to do better. We've taken in consideration our audits, our test scores, the LEARNS Act, the loss of funding overall. It's my understanding, and please correct me if I am wrong.
Sure.
It's my understanding that you have hired more black African American individuals than any other superintendent within our school district. By our test scores, we need our parents to be more involved in their kids' education. We've spoke about wraparound services. We've got 5 campuses that are on state school improvement. Wraparound services are needed within the community. I love the idea of the 24-hour response time. Who doesn't love that 24-hour idea? It seems that you've listened to our staff survey. Our staff members have spoken. It was not all, but it was some. And their voice was loud. 10 wraparound and 8 network instructional, 18 school-based positions is what I've heard. Am I correct on that? When I speak of the wraparound and the 8 network instruction, that is school-based individuals.
Right, those are, so in the network model, because we can't afford one for every single school, they'll be network-based, but they're working within the network, but they're attached to the schools they will be serving. That's exactly right, but overseen by a coordinator, but being school-based. On the instructional side, all of these you see in red, those resources will be, those, if this goes through, those positions will be advertised and they will be selected by their principal for recommendation for hire. So they are school-based 100%.
So what I'm hearing you say is our building principals have the autonomy to decide who comes into their buildings.
Sure, they would have the opportunity to hand select through the interview process, just like we do any other time, but the person that's the best fit for their school based on what their needs are.
I have to say, by looking at this, teachers and staff members of the North Little Rock School District, I'm sorry. There is no loyalty in working for our district for over 20 years, and I am sorry. We have hired new people to come in from outside of our own, non-homegrown, and I am sorry. I am sorry. It does not pay to be a North Little Rock School District employee. Loyalty is dead, is what we have shown you. And I am sorry. I'm upset. This is very telling of how we treat our longtime employees, and I'm sorry. Your blood, sweat, and tears have not gone unnoticed.
have to ask.
Yes, ma'am.
Jay Beckett, the attorney,
Yes,
has
ma'am.
looked over this proposal, this reorganization.
His name's on the front cover as
His
well.
name is on it. So he has decided and deemed that we are okay with this moving forward.
On a legal basis, yes.
So I have to piggyback and inquire why Angela brought up federal compliance. Because if we are going to go down this road, I would think that the attorney, Jay Beckett, would not approve of this plan if we're getting in murky waters. I'm going to pause. That was a rhetoric.
No, it wasn't a rhetoric. But go on.
Teachers, I will work diligently to find you a raise. And if that means we have to cut top-heavy central office personnel, then that is what I'm willing to do. I'm going to pause for now and catch my breath.
Ms. McLean. Sorry, I had a
Wow.
fog.
This is the research that you put into this plan is impressive.
Thanks, Ms. McLean.
You didn't just come up and draw something on the chalkboard. Can I say chalkboard now, y'all? The whiteboard.
Dry erase.
And say, okay, let's see how can we do this? Well, we can eliminate this and that and that. No, you did a lot of research on this. You have a passion for these wraparound services, and I think all of us, I know I do, all of us on this board have a passion for that, and I think our teachers have a passion for that. And the 24-hour thing, I've never heard that before, but I love it. I love that.
Be the goal.
If we don't cut the $5.1 million, will that result in us being in fiscal distress, this district?
We would probably be on our way.
Yes.
I think any time if you can't, if you're not able to work that out within your operating budget, and then you've got to go through some different means in order to, maintain your budget, those would be getting into budget practices that would not yield well for the district.
Exactly. This is something we have to do. Angela was a little expressive in her way of talking about Band-Aids and using some gauze, but this has to happen. We talked at I don't know if any of you heard our workshop that we had on Saturday, but we talked then about how we have to cut 4.2, I think, to get this raise for our teachers that we want. So that's an additional 4.2 that we will find. We will find that in our budget so that we can give teachers a raise. And if I think I wrote this down. Excuse me, staff. Exactly. All employees. The takes 2.5 million, I think, to give the raise. You said something earlier.
Yeah, and we'll get you all those numbers. Those are just some rough figures that Mr. Brown gave me. I'm not sure if that meant 4% for classified and 2% for licensed, because we know we've always been trying to help the classified side out.
Yes.
We're all advocates of our bus drivers don't get paid enough, our custodians
no,
don't
they
get paid
don't.
enough, maintenance doesn't get paid enough. All those areas. Just don't quote me on that. We'll be happy to give you some more.
No, I remember us talking about it. He told us that we needed that, and I think that would get us to a 2.5% raise. And
Ms. McLean, real
we
quick,
could
if
do it
y'all would
each-
just kind of, y'all, it's too much outside chatter, and I can't all the way hear her. Appreciate it.
Okay. That would get us where we could give that every year. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong on that. Is that not what we discussed?
We want to, yes.
That's what we would want to
That is our
do.
desire.
that it wouldn't just be a one-time raise.
Correct. That's where the fiscal, when it says savings for fiscal health, in order to give raises every year, that's where we'd have to be fiscally healthy
Yes.
in
So
order to
that's-
do that year after year.
So that's where we are headed. We're determined to get to that so that we can have teachers having a raise.
Employees.
Employees. Why do I say that? I guess because I was a teacher, right? All our employees, because my goodness, we've talked about, you just mentioned it, the bus driver, everybody, all of our employees need raises. And I'm on the train going in that direction. I want to do that. We have got to cut these positions. I love the approach that you took on this. I love the emphasis on those wraparound services. I love they're going to be, those positions are going to be in the buildings, working with the teachers. I love that the principals of the buildings will be selecting those people to be in their buildings. Will we, if this plan does go into effect, will we find some bumps along the way? Probably. No matter what you do, you'll find some bumps and you have to adjust, and we will. But I think this board will be looking to make adjustments so that we can feel like we're going to be loyal to our employees. For sure. I think that's a commitment that I would be willing to say, that we are committed. I am committed. Let me just say that. I am committed to getting into a position where we can give raises to our employees every year. But it's going to take some cuts to get there. And they're not easy. They're not easy at all. But that's the path that we have to go down. Thank you, Dr. Paluski, for all that you did and the research and everything that you put together here.
Thank you, Ms. McLean.
But let me double. Are you ready, Ms. Temple?
If Henry's ready, I'll go after him.
Mr. Taylor?
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Taylor.
So, looking at the change from November 2024 and January 2025, it looks like the chief of staff role picked up about 9 direct reports, which were originally under a different director. And then the assistant, so that's the chief of staff. Then the deputy superintendent, she had 4 in January, but it looks like, am I reading this right, 13 in November?
No, there was a change in the middle of October.
Okay.
There was a change in responsibilities in the middle of October. At the same time that anytime an individual is out that reports to me, I accept that responsibility. So there have been some cases, and I know in the last report that I wrote, there have been some cases where I've had 17 direct reports.
Okay. And then the assistant superintendent in the new proposed, they're going to pick up 11.
Well, so you have each network has 7, and then you have within the wraparound service has 11. So those would be all the coordinators within all of those areas. So that includes the Division of Curriculum Instruction, that includes support services, and that also includes special education.
Okay, I see the difference in the 2, the 7, but the 11 and the 9, it looks like it's the same as the original.
So, well, So as we're currently structured right now, so I'll give you an example. Our executive director of elementary school performance has 10 schools.
Right.
4 of which are in state level school improvement. That, in my professional opinion, that's a lot for one individual. On the other side, you have the secondary, which only has 4. There's an imbalance. So in this model where it divides the responsibility between 7 direct reports of principals in each one of those, 3 in Network B that has 3 schools in state level of school improvement. In A has 2, with the exception of adding North Little Rock Academy because of the graduation rate.
I agree.
Yeah.
I see those two. I see the change.
Sure.
But it looks like we're going back to the original. We're a little different. You got 11 and 9 instead of 13 and maybe 8. I'm just trying to understand, is that much different? Or, I mean, what are we looking for? How can we ensure that it's leveled fairly across? But I understand the other two.
Yeah, I mean, usually in any kind of span of control, you get to 7 to 10. It's usually the business standard to that. You can get outside of that. 11 curriculum coordinators, just from my own personal experience, I've supervised 11 of those and 15 principals. So it's not uncommon to be able, especially in the curriculum content area, to be able to supervise those 11. On the school side, 7, our schools, as you've seen our data, need help and need support. And so having 7 schools, I think, would make it a little more manageable, as well as the level of responsibility. We simply have to start moving our numbers, period. And through this model is where the basis of it comes from, not to go through all the research in it, but it's getting into that connectivity of those networks and sharing those resources. And we have to do a better job serving our families. We have to. And we've got to come up with a better way in order to service. I don't think there's any. We were just at school the other day talking to the principal, talking about what was going on outside of a child's life and how they're, support. I talked to a principal the other day. Do you have a parent engagement specialist? Boy, I do not, but boy, would I love one. I know exactly what they would do. Do you have an instructional coach in your building? No, I do not. Dr. Paluski, in this reorganization, school, I feel left out. I feel like they've got a resource, but I don't. So, and I often talk about this. This is an entire complex Rubik's Cube. When you look at the parameters to say, don't reduce this, you do this, do that, that's a complex Rubik's Cube to be able to solve a problem that gets to $5.6 million to make us solve it. And with any model, I think this was asked at the last one, I'm constantly looking at and analyzing the organization. I plan to go back to the operations side. This is the second time I've gone to the instructional side. I have all full intentions to go back to the operations side as well. But it's a cycle that we've had to go through. What we've learned as an organization, you can't do more than one reorganization in a year. It's impossible to be able to do that, to do more than one within a year in sustainability. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
That's it.
It's up to you, Doc. Oops, Ms. Temple.
Okay. I wrote some notes as I was listening, and I guess I want to circle back to what we have done in the past, because when you came on, we had so much work to do in this district. I mean, I don't know how any of you working here for any length of time can see all of the issues that needed to be addressed that over so much time had not been addressed. And we'd sit here at these board meetings and we'd keep bumping up against the same stuff over and over, and a lot of it was business stuff. We didn't even get to school curriculum or any of that because we kept bumping up against this. And so I feel like having somebody who just focus on that, the chief of staff, is going to be very good for this district, where we can quit bumping up into that and we can focus on what we're here to do. We're here to educate students, and we want to make all of y'all feel like like you deserve to feel. So but when you came on, and we hired quite a bit, and I personally, I can't speak for everybody, but I was kind of worried about the level of people we were hiring, but I'm like, we're gutting this house. That means, you need an electrician, and you need a plumber, and you need a framer, and you need someone to do sheetrock, and you need a painter, and you need all this to rebuild this house. But once the house is built, now you don't need all those people anymore. And I was worried about, that time's going to come when we're not going to need that level of support from, the business up here.
Sure.
I don't know if you call it admin or. So I think, we're kind of getting there. But we know from the beginning, because I think when you came on, I'm like, let's get this business stuff fixed. And you're like, no, we're here for schools. We're getting right into this curriculum. We're getting right into this.
That was my priority. That was.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff on the operations side of the house that still needs to be, but you're correct. That's exactly where I started.
And I'm sorry, I have a lot of thoughts running through my head. Okay. So now we're at a point where we really have focused. I mean, we could save more, and y'all have said, you stood up here tonight and said, don't take away our services from our school. We need these services. So we could not give some of that wraparound services and stuff. We could take that away. I mean, there's nothing in the law that says that we have to do that.
Sure.
And we could give raises, but does that improve your job? And I know for myself, environment is as important to me as pay. And I have taken pay cuts for a better environment. And so every time I hear, it's like, it's always pay, or, how much we're getting paid. And that's important because you work for a paycheck, right? But I have been in jobs where I was paid a lot of money and it was not worth it because the environment was just it just wasn't good. And we want an environment here that, well, maybe you don't get as much as across the river, but you want to come to work. You can't wait to see your coworkers and you feel like, hey, I'm here for a purpose. And that's the vision that we talk about when we're all talking, that the culture, we want to be that culture. And so we have to do something. We have to do the 5.1 million. That's just a done deal. It has to be done.
Sure.
Now, raises, I know you come up almost every time saying, we need raises, we need, and we got to get to that. But we're going to work together on this. And this seems like it provides, to me, the feedback I'm getting is this gives you what you need in the classrooms, in the schools to do. And I'm not an educator, so, I may be wrong. And when y'all get it for 10 days and you look at it and you say, oh, no, this doesn't get it. We're willing to hear what you have to say. But I don't know. The other thing I wanted to bring up is in the past, when we've done this restructure, you were counseled not to tell until the restructure. And the people that it impacted were quite upset. And I would have been too. I'm like, I don't like doing business that way. I don't care what the lawyer says. We need to tell them ahead of time. But then look what happened. We tell ahead of time, people like, this is coming, be prepared. And it turns into, I don't even know what this is. It's a lot. It's just a lot. And so, I mean, that's part of the culture. We're wanting to tell people ahead of time, we value you. And we want you to reapply for these positions. But they're different positions. It's a different scope. And so we don't want to force you into something you don't want to do. That doesn't work either. And that's not a lack of loyalty to the employee. This is what we have to do. If you want to stay with us, then please, apply for this job. It's different. It's not what you had. I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
I'd like to finish my thoughts. This is very overwhelming, but it has to be done. It's the responsibility of the board. But I do want to make something clear, and I would like for you to say yes or no to this, if you will. It's my understanding that this is just the beginning. This is just the start of us finding $9 to $10 million that we need in order to be fiscally responsible all of our staff to get a raise. I said teachers, that was me, Valerie, that put that in your head. I apologize. All of our staff members, classified and certified, and any and all in between and above and beyond. So it's my understanding that this is, if you will, organization part 6A, and we will have a reorganization 6B, because on Saturday we tasked you with other things that we would like to see.
Yeah, that's true. There are other things that you wanted to table until the fall that were also significant areas that could be reduced. And so, you know, in my professional opinion, ever since I've arrived, we've always been trying to get to this point that we knew that everything had to be examined. Every department had to be examined. Every staff piece had to be examined. The way that it used to operate to the way that it operates now, so that we're, you know, fiscally have a handle on our staffing. You know, I'd be remiss to remind the board when I first got here that when I arrived that, you know, there were positions that were coming before the board that the chief financial officer didn't even know. Didn't even know what budget string they were coming from. That should never happen. I'm only painting that picture of, I see a lot of nodding heads going, yeah, that happened. Yeah. We're not there, and we're trying to be very fiscally responsible, conservative, also looking where there's efficiency, effectiveness, where, I mean, that's just the nature of where we are and where we've been, and what you've asked me to do.
Any more questions?
I have one more, just putting this out there. I don't think any of us are saying if you move to this great state of Arkansas and this wonderful city of North Little Rock to not apply with us, because we do want the applicants and we do want people that even if you do live elsewhere, we're not discriminating if you live in other states or cities. Still feel free to apply.
Mr. Taylor.
Madam President, Dr. Paluski.
Yes, sir.
Time management is a key leadership responsibility and should not be used as an excuse for poor communication. I disagree with moving forward with this proposal of reorganization. It has not been received. It has not been reviewed thoroughly, considerations made, or oversight that is needed. Employment decisions are challenging, but making them improperly damages trust, morale, and overall health of our community. We have a policy for both licensed and classified personnel reductions. Policy 3.04 and 8.30 that speaks to when a decrease in enrollment or other reasons requires a reduction in staff. Embedded in that policy is a systematic process for reducing staff. I have not found a policy on reorganization. So I understand that I'm new. I understand that. So I have a different point. I have a different vantage point than a lot of you. You've seen things in the past. But I cannot support this.
So,
anyone else?
I was just gonna, just a point of clarity, if I may. Mr. Taylor, the law 161320, I believe it is, which is the statute of the superintendent. In the law gives the superintendent the authority to run the day-to-day operations of the school district. Included in that is the oversight to organize staff as he or she deems necessary for the overall effectiveness of the district. There's also a line within my contract that you've approved that gives me the autonomy and the flexibility to author or to do a reorganization, if you will. The process is what we're in right now, that even though I have the autonomy to restructure things, it still has to come before this body to go to the LPPC to be weighed in, and then ultimately comes back with a board of a final vote, whether or not you're in favor or not in favor of the superintendent's authority to reorganize in that particular area. But it is covered under the law.
I think you missed what I was saying. It's the process that's concerning me.
Well,
I agree. I understand you have day-to-day
yes,
responsibility
and
and
I would,
authority.
And I'd be the first
However,
one.
this is a major change. This is not a minor.
Sure. And the only thing I'll say is that this is the process.
Okay.
And we're on number 6. We've done 5 of these the exact same way we've done this one, in the same manner, in the same steps, in the same process.
But why are we doing 6? I understand.
It's. Yeah, Doc.
Anybody? I have closing remarks. So, did anybody else have anything else to say? All righty. We are living in trying times. I wrote mine down before I came because I know how I am and I get emotional. So I wanted to make sure that I covered questions that were presented to me by email, by text, by face-to-face, all that. So here we go. I have presented to several other boards on our primary role as a board member. As such, as board members and policy followers, a reminder of a couple of excerpts according to the North Little Rock School District School Board Policies, Section 1, Board Governance and Operations Code 1.07. The North Little Rock Board of Education, operating in accordance with state and federal laws, assumes its responsibilities for the operation of the North Little Rock School District. The board shall concern itself primarily with broad questions of policy as it exercises its legislative and judicial duties. The administrative functions of the district are delegated to the superintendent, who shall be responsible for the effective administration and supervision of the district. Electing and employing a superintendent and giving him or her the support needed to be able to effectively implement the board's policies. Employing upon recommendation of the administrative staff and by written contract the staff necessary for the proper conduct of the schools. The main thing for me is the striving to assure that all students are challenged and are given an equal educational opportunity. Furthermore, we do not receive a paycheck, a stipend, not even a mileage check for what we do. Every meeting, every workshop, every school visit, every event we attend is strictly voluntary and out of concern and passion for the children and staff of this district. We are required to have training hours, yet we as a board have not even been able to attend national board workshops since 2021 due to the budget. Speaking on behalf of myself and my investment and compassion for the district, I am a graduate of Northeast. I worked as a classified employee for this district for 11 years. I served on the board 6 years previous to this one, and I have lived in the same zone for 34 years. My children went to the school K through 12 in this district, as well as I have grandchildren in this district. Therefore, I am truly invested in this district, and I have compassion for every student and every staff. Feeling-wise, I don't want to see anyone potentially out of cut from a position, because I've been included myself 3 different times, and it was a major struggle to get through. If I was a trillionaire, budget cuts would be a non-issue, because we, meaning the district, would want for nothing, but obviously that is not the case. As such, in order to fulfill our mission to prepare all students for their future by offering a well-rounded, rigorous, relevant, and innovative education that allows each child to achieve their full potential in a safe, supportive learning environment to be future ready, I must base my decision today on facts, not feelings. Facts. It is Rochelle's opinion that where we went wrong to begin was depending on ESSER funds with the hope that the enrollment would increase. A fact. Every major agenda item we have had the last 5 years, we have taken polls to make our decisions. When we voted to end masks, we asked the parents, and the majority wanted them removed. Personally, I wasn't happy because I wasn't ready for that, but I voted because that's what the parents wanted. When we ended uniforms, we polled the parents and the staff, and the majority said end the uniforms. I certainly am still not happy with that, because if it was up to me, they'd still be in uniforms. But I voted to end uniforms because why? The majority has spoken. Here we are again with a major agenda item, reorganization. Staff were polled, asked for ways that they thought we could save $5.1 million and work toward getting them a raise. The majority said the district is too top heavy. We have had a student decline resulting in, as Dr. Paluski has said, $14 million. Mind you, in order to decrease costs, with 80% of the district's expenditures being salaries and benefits, we could do as other surrounding districts and have done and will be doing is not hire several teachers. But the superintendent's proposal to be submitted to the LPPC and CPPC before final approval is where the bulk of the money or the cost is. Also, this will eliminate not cutting benefits. To the public's perception, it looks like African American women are the most being affected. But what you don't know is that the board, when the superintendent was first hired, several of us made a request to see more diversity, especially on the executive level, principals and teachers, which has been a continued work in progress, not only in the area of race, but also we need more males. Hence, demographically, most of the district principals, teachers, and executive team consist of what? Women. Therefore, it stands to reason that most of the positions being affected will be women. So, as I stated, the climate surveys revealed that central office was too top heavy, which by default consists of women. Here we are today. It is unfortunate that the DEI has been eliminated. Federal workers are losing their jobs. But what is happening at this stage of the North Little Rock School District is something that was previously discussed before the world's climate issues began. We have declining enrollment, our reading scores are horrible, and we are too top heavy. These discussions is nothing new. What is being proposed tonight from the superintendent and his staff is not a specific target of African American employees, but simply what the district has gone through before, a reorganization that will benefit the district, our students, and show that we truly do listen to our staff. If you truly listen thoroughly to the reorganization plan, it affects other races as well. One of our 5-year strategic plan goals that we as a board created is organizational effectiveness. Again, this reorganization is a change, and sometimes changes hurt and are not pleasing. But this reorganization should not be this surprising. Sadly, because of the state of the world right now, timing is a concern of mine personally. However, my duty is to put feelings aside, stick to the facts, and look at the state of the district. This possible reorganization plan, and I re-emphasize possible, because tonight's vote is to send it to the LPPC and the CPPC for further discussion. If we reflect upon the 100-day plan from April 25th and the Gibson report from May 22nd that included interviews from district leadership, unanimously approved by the board, some of the key areas was central office organizational structure is misaligned to meet the needs of the schools. There is inconsistent implementation and mixed reviews on the MCL model across schools to support improvement. The superintendent's next actions were to conduct a central office organizational chart audit with a redesign for maximum efficiency, performance, and support to improve schools, to develop a cohesive executive leadership team at central office aimed to improve the performance of all schools, to conduct a curriculum management audit, a compensation study audit, a financial management audit, a human resources management audit, and a school safety and security audit. That's why we're on number 6, reorganization, because that was a task that we gave to him. Conduct a declining enrollment audit with strategies to expand and strengthen educational options and programs to grow student enrollment pre-K through 12. So, therefore, what is being presented is nothing more than what we as a board requested back in 2021 and 2022, and is just not coming to fruition. Lastly, as far as notifying the potentially affected staff about the reorganization, as we did at all the other 5, each board member had the opportunity to meet with the superintendent individually, one-on-one, to review the possible reorganizational plan before presenting it in open session to the board and voice your concerns before staff were notified. In the past, we have eliminated a position during a meeting and the employee was blindsided. If it were me, I would much prefer to be warned that my position was going to be up for public discussion before I was reviewed it watching it live. I, while employed in the district, have been riffed before, and I found out afterwards that was hurtful. Nobody likes to be blindsided, especially when it affects your livelihood. We each are one voice of 7. We can all agree to disagree. However, at the end of the day, it is my prayer and hope that we leave here continuing to press forward and continuing to be about our vision, our mission, and our moral purpose that we as a board devise. Thank you. And is there a motion to send Central Office Administration School Network Support Reorganization Plan to LPPC and CPPC?
Madam President?
Yes, ma'am.
I move that we send the superintendent's recommendation for the North Little Rock School District Central Office School Network Support as presented in open session to the LPPC and the CPPC for 10 days.
Second.
It has been properly moved and second that we send the Central Office Administration School Network Support Reorganization Plan proposal Phase 6 to LPPC and CPPC for review. Is there any more discussion? We will have a roll call vote. Ma'am?
Not at this time.
Yes.
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 No.
It is 4-2, so therefore it passes, and so it would go to the LPPC and CPPC for review. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Madam President.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
so move that we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.